Saints, the Holy Spirit has been impressing upon my wife and I the reality of the pre-tribulation rapture. We've got to understand it takes God to prepare us, God to call us, God to get a position, God to prepare us for that, because we don't understand the reality of the pre-tribulation rapture. Are you ready? Or will you be like Lot's wife and look back? Will you look back if the pre-tribulation rapture is going to happen? Would you say like so many said to the Lord when he told them to follow him? And they said, "Oh, I took a wife. Excuse me. Oh, I just bought some land. Oh, I just started a business. Oh, let me go bury my father." He said, "Let the dead bury the dead." Who could be prepared for this? And what does it mean? Because to be caught up immediately, saints, think of this. To be caught up immediately in the twinkling of an eye in the pre-tribulation rapture. Are you in a place? Has God prepared you? What if you have a sick mother, a sick relative, sick teenagers? What if you're involved in something? What if you started a business? What if you just taken a wife? Could you just drop that and be gone? He's not forcing anybody to go any place. He's calling those to the wedding feast. But those that were invited, the wedding feast, remember, was a feast the groom had at his father's house with his friends while the bride prepared herself. That's the pre-tribulation rapture. God is calling and preparing a people, but do you know what that means? Who is he prepared? Would you be ready to go? If he called you, if suddenly you were called to that feast, can you drop everything? Or will you turn back like Lot's wife and look back? It's not that you're going to lose your salvation. The tribulation will start and the latter-day rain will be poured out upon you and you will be made ready. But those at the pre-tribulation rapture, when everything seems fine, when life is going on, when they're buying, selling, trading, could you just go in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye? Or will you say, "My mother is sick"? A legitimate thing. I just took a wife. A legitimate thing. I just started a business. Nothing wrong with that. I got to go bury my father. Nothing wrong with that. Like when Elijah called Elijah, he said, "First let me go say goodbye to his parents." Is there anything wrong with that? No, there's nothing wrong with those things, but it's where your heart is. It's where your desire is. It's where your needs lead you. The pre-tribulation rapture is for those that God has called and prepared and invited to that. And they will be ready, and they can and will drop everything in the moment and in the twinkling of an eye. Think about that, saints. It's not a fairy tale. It's not Christian nursery stories for baby Christians. It's the reality of the pre-tribulation rapture. To be called to leave in an instant and leave everything behind. How many can? How many would? How many in a good heart would say, "Excuse me, I can't go. My wife's sick. My kids are sick. I can't leave this. I can't do this. Oh, I just started that. Please excuse me," as you see in so many of the Lord's stories. That's the reality of the pre-tribulation rapture. God is calling and preparing a people because the ones that were invited, they're too busy. They got too many things to do. And God's looking. He's calling the blind, the lame, the weak. He's calling us who will lay down everything in the moment and the twinkling of an eye and go with him to the wedding feast at his father's house while the bride prepares herself. That's the reality, saints. That's the things we don't see. That's the things you haven't been told. You see in the church of Philadelphia that he said in Revelation 3:10, this is the next to the last message to the church in the book of Revelation. In the church of Philadelphia, he had not one bad thing to say. And he told them in Revelation 3:10, because you have kept the word of my perseverance, because you have kept the word of my perseverance, you've persevered, I also will keep you from the hour of testing. This isn't just saying everybody and anything that ever said yes. It's a condition, and he has not one bad thing to say. And he says to them, I will also keep you from the hour of testing, that hour that is about to come upon the whole world to test those who dwell upon the earth. He said he would keep them from that. Now Laodicea, the last message to the church in the book of Revelation, what does he say to them? In Revelation 3, starting in verse 15, I know your deeds, that you, after speaking to Philadelphia, having not one bad thing to say, and saying he would keep them from that hour of testing, to the church of Laodicea, the last message to the church, he says, I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. I would that you were cold or hot, because God hates mixture. The ones that are mixed in the world, loving the world, the things of the world. They love Egypt. They love Babylon. They serve the flesh. They're Christians, but they love those things. They're not hot, they're not cold, they're mixed. Verse 16, so because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. Does that sound like rapture, saints? That's the last message. That's the church of Laodicea. That's the church that goes into the tribulation. That's the bride that will make herself ready. That as you read more about Laodicea, she's not dressed. She's not ready. She's naked. She's not ready for her wedding. And they want to tell you, no, all the church gets raptured before the tribulation. And that we've seen before, and I'll read it again, can't be true. Because in Revelation 7:9, after these things, I looked, and behold, a great multitude, which no one could count. John sees this multitude of people in this vision, this revelation he's seeing. He sees a multitude of people which no one could count, from every nation, and all tribes, and all peoples and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes, and palm branches were in their hands. So John sees this people. And then in verse 13, one of the 24 elders that was around the throne, and one of the 24 elders answered, saying to me, these who are clothed in white robes, who are they? And where are they from? So one of these 24 elders asked John, this people you've seen from every nation and every tongue and every tribe and every peoples, clothed in white, who are they? Where did they come from, John? And what does John say? And I said to him, my Lord, you know. And he said to me, these are the ones who come out of the great tribulation, and they have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. So you see this people from every tongue and tribe and nation and people upon earth standing there before the throne. And one of the elders asked John, who are they? And he tells them, these are the ones who come out of the great tribulation. Laodicea, the church that's loving the world, the church that when the Lord calls them, they say, I took a wife, I started a business, I got to go bury my father. They all have things to do. They're all busy in the world. Those aren't evil things. The pre-tribulation rapture requires you to drop all those things instantly. Who can do that? Who? The ones that God has prepared. The ones that God has called, that answered the call. And He has to prepare them. If the pre-tribulation rapture was going to happen and you knew it in 5 minutes, what a vast amount of people would say, oh, I just took a wife, I got to take care of her. I just started a business. I got to go bury my father. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got a sick mother I take care of. The tribulation's coming. I can't leave her behind. I have teenage kids that are not saved. I'd rather be here and preach to them. And they'll be saved. And they'll be part of this great multitude. See, God is calling a people for the pre-tribulation rapture. But God is also preparing a people, Laodicea, that will go into the first 3.5 years of the tribulation, not as punishment, but the latter-day rain will be poured out upon them. And they'll preach the gospel to all these peoples in every nation, tongues, and people and nation. Each Christian in their own area and country and language will be preaching the gospel. Don't you see that? These teachers who just want to keep you in your nursery rhymes and keep the numbers up. They tell you every single Christian that ever said yes is going to be caught up and gone. You can see that ain't true. And how many of you truly would say, I want to take care of my mother, she's sick. I want to get my kids saved. I've got this to do. I've got that to do. There's nothing wrong with that. Your heart is there to do that. But God is seeking a people to go to the wedding feast with His Son. For that feast. Like a modern day good and godly bachelor party while the bride is preparing herself. God is calling a people. Most Christians don't have any reality of to be caught up in the pre-tribulation rapture. They're not ready. If given a choice in the second, in the twinkling of an eye, they'd say, I got to take care of my mother. I just took a wife. I'm building a house. Their mind would be caught up. They wouldn't go. They wouldn't be ready because they wouldn't be prepared. God calls us. God chooses us. And God prepares us for that place. And you can see this in dozens of places in the Word. And what did He say in Luke 9, 61 and 62? And another also said, Lord, I will follow there, but let me go, bid farewell to those who are at home at my house. And Jesus said unto him, no one, having put his hand to the plow and looking back, is fit for the kingdom of God. Most aren't ready. Most aren't prepared. Most, given a choice, are going to have very legitimate good reasons to say, I'm going to stay a little while longer. Just like Lot's wife. Lot and his wife were called out, but his wife turned around and looked back. And all these teachers with their nursery rhymes and everything want to tell you that's evil. Lot's wife was destroyed. She was caught up in it. It's just like the tribulation. She was caught up in it. She was encased in salt. Every other case in the Bible, every other place in the Bible, they're showing you and telling you that salt is a good thing. Salt is preserving you. Salt always represents a good thing. But in that case, they want to tell you Lot's wife looked around and it was evil and she went to hell with them. They're sending everybody to hell but themselves. No, she was encased in salt, but she looked back. She was preserved. The church that goes into the tribulation, Laodicea, they will be preserved. But the thing is, the reality of being caught up in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, most are not ready. Most would change, say, I'll wait, I got this, I can't leave my mother. How many people nowadays would even say, oh, my dogs, I've had Christians tell me, if my dogs ain't going, I don't want to go. Or if there ain't dogs in heaven, I don't want to be there. Or I don't care, I just couldn't understand it. Their hearts are everywhere, in countries, in sports, in sin, in the flesh, in Egypt, in Babylon, in the cares of this life. But God has to prepare us for the pre-tribulation rapture. And we have to be willing to go in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye.